Hello, everyone. I'm Jeff Wright, CEO of UMI, Urban Ministries Incorporated. Many of you have been connected with us for many years from our content, our books, our curriculum, and other resources. But we've also been just very grateful to be able to bring you new voices, new services, and new people who can help you in your ministry, in your personal life. And I have a very, very special guest that I want to introduce to you today. Please, Attorney Cole, tell us who you are, a little bit about your life and your work, and let's get this started.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Wright, for having me. It's a pleasure to connect in this way and be with your audience. So as you mentioned, my name is Erika Cole. I am known as the church attorney. My work for the better part of almost 2.5 decades has been serving churches, ministries, and faith-based organizations. I really find the work that I do as an attorney, specifically serving churches, to be a calling. And I was raised in a church. I called myself a pew baby. My mother was my Sunday school teacher. My father was the head trustee at church, and we were always there. And I'm thankful for that. I learned at an early age that I really wanted to practice law. I was like in 6th grade, and I'm like, I want to be a lawyer. And my mom always tells the story how I never deterred from that path. Graduated high school at 17, went straight to college, went straight to law school from there. And God really opened a door for me where I was able to be selected among my graduating class to clerk for the chief judge of our court. And a case came before the court that involved a national denomination and a local church. And I had no idea, frankly, from the sweet way I was raised in church, like that churches could even go to court. But I asked the judge to assign me that case, and he did. And honestly, that was the beginning of my passion for all things legal related to churches. And God has just opened so many doors for me, and I'm thankful to be of service in this way.
That's fantastic. Now, Attorney Cole, listen, you started with a case, a church, a denomination, but every church needs an attorney, right? Tell us why.
So it's very interesting. As I said, when I started this work more than 2 decades ago, and I would tell people I represent churches, people would say, why would a church need a lawyer? Honestly, nobody asks me that question anymore, because it's just very apparent in our world, and the challenges that we see now. But yes, churches need competent legal counsel for a multitude of reasons, many of which are not quote unquote bad, right? So if you're planting a new church, there are certain rules and regulations around what it means to form a legal entity. Every church needs to have a governance document, usually references bylaws, and churches call it a constitution and bylaws, but there's generally some state statute around what needs to be included. And I don't think that pastors and other church leaders are going around reading state statutes and legal cases, right? So this is what we do as lawyers. This is what I have done over the years. So everything from planting a church to perhaps you want to hire staff, or you have employment questions. If you are looking to create a tax exempt organization, a CDC, those things are really replete with IRS regulations and other kinds of things. I'm grateful that in all these years that I've represented churches and faith-based organizations, I've completed hundreds of tax exempt applications with a 100% success rate, because I really understand and have had the opportunity to work closely with churches and to kind of be that mediator between the church and the IRS. So whether it's those kinds of things, or whether you run into issues like perhaps there's a property tax issue. Unfortunately, we've seen instances where churches have thought that they were property tax exempt, or some issue has occurred with the church and now the property's gone into tax sale, or maybe the church just wants to sell a property or buy a property. I mean, there are just all these legal areas where it's just sound for a church to be able to have good legal advice and access to good legal information.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, one of the little appreciated facts, and maybe in some instances little known, is just how much of the asset base of the African American community is in the hands of churches. Most churches have buildings, and they're very, very valuable. And I know with the work that you've done and the work that you do, helping churches maximize real estate assets is an important part of the work that's supported by good counsel. Just give us a word on that, and then I want to ask you some other stuff.
So if the question is related to why the kinds of issues that are involved in church property and church real estate, as you've suggested, there, like our personal homes, which tend to be the largest asset that many individuals have, it's the same with the church. It's a large asset, but as we also saw during the course of COVID, it also can be an area of challenge. As church property age, as unfortunately in the United States, the attendance at church has been declining, especially over the past 2 to 3 decades. We often find the situation where church property may have some repair needs, etc. It becomes this major expense, and churches have to make hard decisions about how they make use of, those dollars that come in. So when it comes to real estate, it's really important that churches make the decision of whether the property that they have meets their current needs, whether it's appropriate to right size. That's all a part of that evaluation. But what we don't want to see churches do is lose their influence, or unfortunately lose their property. You want to make sure that whatever needs to be considered related to the property usage is thought through, that you work with competent professionals so that you can ensure that that asset is well protected. And if you decide to transition in any way, that you truly get your value. Got
it. Now, one of the things that happens is people often don't appreciate the need for specialized knowledge. Now, any old attorney can't just do what you do. Talk about that a little bit.
That's a fair point. I've often run into the issue where, maybe churches don't readily identify their needs, and they assume that maybe a very kind member in the pew who is a criminal law attorney can manage their tax exempt application, or if they have a property tax issue, or if there's an employment question, or whatever the legal matter may be. I've often found myself helping to resolve issues that maybe other legal counsel was just less familiar with. And that's okay. I mean, we all recognize, I think, the power of a specialist. So if you are going to a doctor, there certainly is a general practitioner that I might go to for my annual checkup. But if I'm going to, if there's some special need related to my foot, I'm probably going to go see the podiatrist. So it's much the same in our practice. And we recognize that as attorneys, but sometimes churches don't really see the distinction between, a lawyer is a lawyer is a lawyer. And this distinction is so important that I actually created a course, a masterclass for attorneys. And some people would say, Erika, you're crazy to give away your secret sauce, right? To be able to train other attorneys. But I feel so passionately that churches are served well that I actually train other attorneys to make sure that that they understand what exactly needs to be evaluated, how to really know the areas of legal compliance that are unique to churches, and to be able to serve them well. It also, frankly, creates a system so that I can make sure that if there's a need and there's someone in Oklahoma who's looking for an attorney there, I might be able to help them and provide that as a resource. So I train other attorneys to try to make sure we strengthen this particular area of practice, because there really aren't a lot of us who do what I do.
Absolutely. And it has nothing to do with the fact that you're an African-American female. You just do this for the church, and you clearly have a passion for it. Tell us some of the other things that you're doing, both for churches and others who are in ministry and nonprofit service. And how can we access some of that great knowledge you just laid out?
Well, first of all, I want to make people aware of the 15th Annual Church Compliance Conference, which is coming up on Thursday, September 22nd of 2022, if you're listening to this in real time. It is a conference that's free, that we have, even though it's free, you do have to register to attend. And we've partnered with fantastic organizations like UMI to be able to make churches, pastors, and faith leaders aware of this important event. The conference, as I mentioned, this is our 15th year, so it's been around. And the real goal is to make sure that churches are aware of the current legal changes, that they understand what it means to be in compliance. It's called the Church Compliance Conference because many churches don't know exactly what the legal requirements are to be in compliance, and also just making sure that we are a resource to provide churches with this information. So as I mentioned, UMI is one of our partners, along with Church Law and Tax. Richard Hammer, who I kind of describe as the godfather in this area, he's the editor of Church Law and Tax, will also be speaking. And also, I'm excited that Jonathan Banks, who is the CEO of Urban Outreach Foundation, will be sharing words as well. So it's going to be a great event. It's online, so you can attend no matter where you are. And the theme is coming together, the legal and practical ways to strengthen what remains. We know that churches
and practical ways to strengthen what remains. Okay. Now, this is the 22nd and it's online. Where do we go online to register? Tell us about that specifically.
So you can go right to my website, erikacole.com. That's ERIKACOLE.com. And you'll see the conference there. You can click on the link and register directly. And I have gotten a question about whether you can have more than one attendee from a church. So feel free to have your entire board register, to have your pastor, your executive pastor, your leadership. I've gotten so much positive feedback over the years of people who've attended the event. And I think you will find that it's been a fantastic use of your time. And frankly, lawyers aren't known to give away their time and services. Generally, these things would be quite costly, but we're grateful to bring them to you.
Now, so you believe a pastor should come, but he should bring some members of his team as well. Will it be accessible for pastors? I mean, are you going to talk over their heads or into their problems? Tell us exactly why the pastor should be at this conference.
Yes, because the pastor ultimately is the person that, is the ultimate leader of the church. And I think many people will follow the pastor's steps, and to be able to have a place where maybe I can share information in a way that a pastor in a pastor's heart might not share. So we're not going to talk at anyone. I think you'll very much find the information accessible, but it's also information that you're not going to find. You can't exactly Google lawyer your way to some of this information. So to be able to have a resource that's literally, at your fingertips, I think will serve the pastor and his team and his or her team. And also to have all of the leaders, the essential leaders in one place, hearing the same information helps to make sure that you don't have to try to go back and translate it to folks later on.
Got it. So we're talking about the 15th Annual Church Compliance Conference, hosted by Erika Cole, the church attorney, the church lawyer, the lady who knows what you need to know so that you can be in compliance, and also so that you can effectively manage your ministry. Again, erikacole.com is where we can register. How long will it be on the 22nd? And is there a specific time we have to tune in?
Yeah, the event is going to be live. So it's a live event. It's from 11 to 1 o'clock Eastern time. And you'll be able to log in. You'll get all of your login information once you've registered. So we would look forward to having you. And you'll really be able to come along and get, for example, Richard Hammer will be talking about the 2022 Supreme Court updates that specifically impact churches. And we know it's been an active time in our nation. So it's really important to have that information in front of you. Again, I'm going to be speaking specifically about compliance matters for churches. So you'll almost be able to have a little bit of a checklist when you leave the event to be able to evaluate for yourself how your church is doing.
Great. Attorney Erika Cole, the church lawyer. What are some other ways that we can connect with you? What else are you doing?
So you might want to listen, if you're a podcaster, I really enjoy, if you're a podcast listener, I enjoy listening to podcasts. And I started a podcast a bit over a year ago, and we're going into season 3. So my next episode actually drops next week, I think on September 13th. So again, if you go to erikacole.com, you can sign up for my newsletter and you'll be able to see that information. And I also make sure that my podcast is uploaded as well to my website. And it's called the Church Law Podcast. So it's an amazing way for me to be able to share in real time information with church leaders, pastors, church leaders, board members. It's a place where I'm able to answer your questions as well. We had a fantastic Q&A last season, and just a tidbit for your listeners, we haven't announced this anywhere else. We'll be adding a Q&A to our season 3 lineup as well. We'll be talking to major faith leaders as well. I get to interview major faith leaders who talk about issues like pastoral burnout, which has been, unfortunately, like many areas where burnout has been experienced. But I think we would all appreciate that the pastor role is in and of itself pretty unique. And the challenges that we have seen over the years and the level of burnout in pastors has been increasing. And so we talk about those kinds of issues, and along with questions about the specifics of church employment matters. You'll see that I have an upcoming interview with the president of ECFA, and we'll be talking about really important matters, even about succession planning, which is something that I would hope every church is giving some thought to, even if it's not imminent, but even if it's down the road, but to have a process in place for succession planning. So we really get to cover a lot of ground as the podcast episodes release throughout the season.
Now, Attorney Cole, you also have something going on YouTube. Is that right?
That is true. So the Church Attorney YouTube channel, we actually just launched that earlier this summer. And you get to see the live interviews that I do, along with some information that is unique to the YouTube platform where I share. So these are some great options for churches to really take advantage of, because you'll hear directly from me and get resources that you can put to use really immediately.
Fantastic. So my guest today has been Attorney Erika Cole, the church attorney. She is sponsoring the 15th annual Church Compliance Conference on September 22nd, 11 o'clock Eastern Time, live. And you can register, and you must register to attend at erikacole.com, the Church Compliance Conference. You want to be there, you need to be there. And I think you'll find when you come, as so many people have over the years, it transforms your church, your ministry, and reduces risk. You want to be there. Thank you so much. Any final words for our audience?
Well, I just want to say thank you so much for the support that you've shown, Dr. Wright, and for the support of UMI. And It's been fantastic to be able to share information about the conference and areas around the work that I've been able to do over the years to serve churches and faith-based organizations. We just want to be encouraged. I just want to be an encourager for churches and faith leaders. We know that really, while times are challenging, we know that God is with us. And I want to just encourage you to take advantage of the fantastic resources that we've mentioned today.
The 15th Annual Church Compliance Conference, September 22nd, 11 o'clock. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Attorney Cole.
A pleasure. Thanks for having me.